stop scrolling right now. Because what you are about to hear is not another celebrity rumor, not another internet exaggeration, and not another headline blown out of proportion. This is the moment a custody situation involving one of the most famous families on the planet allegedly cracked wide open in front of the entire world. And at the very center of it, a 12-year-old girl named Northwest. Not a tabloid character, not a meme, a child. And according to a wave of circulating reports, her own father, Kanye West, allegedly placed her voice into a project so loaded with controversy that emergency conversations reportedly started behind closed doors within hours. Lawyers were pulled in. Mediators were summoned. Phones were ringing in places that normally stay silent. And the name attached to the chaos surrounding that song was a name no parent ever wants near their child. A name already drowning in federal heat. Diddy. Now, before anybody jumps to conclusions, none of this has been confirmed in any courtroom. And a lot of what is flying around online is still labeled as rumor, allegation, and unverified leak. But the storm itself is real. The reaction is real. The fear is real. And the reason you clicked on this video is because something inside you already senses that this story is not going to end quietly. So sit back, lock in, and stay until the very last second, because by the time we are done breaking this entire timeline down piece by piece, you're going to understand exactly why people inside the industry are whispering that this might be the moment that finally rewrites the entire Kardashian-West custody arrangement forever. And here is the part nobody is saying out loud yet. There is a version of this story, allegedly being discussed in private rooms, where the next legal step does not just adjust visitation. It restructures it, permanently. So if you think you have already heard the worst of this saga, you have not heard anything yet. What you are about to hear connects a music release, a federal indictment, a halted visit, an emergency call, and a child caught in between four moving walls. Every single piece matters. Every single piece changes the picture. And if you skip even one of them, the rest of this story will not make sense. So lock in. Let's get into it. It started the way most Kanye stories start lately. Quietly. Suspiciously. A snippet hits the timeline, a producer leaks a clip, a fan account uploads something that was supposed to stay hidden, and suddenly half the platform is fighting about it before the official version even drops. That is the pattern. That is the rhythm. That is the world Kanye West has been operating inside for years now. But this time, the snippet was different. This time, the snippet did not just spark debate. It detonated one. Because the moment listeners pressed play, two things happened almost at once. The first was the recognition of a small voice tucked into the track. A young voice. A familiar voice. The voice of his oldest daughter, Northwest. The second was the recognition of references, names, and audio textures that immediately pulled the listener toward the heaviest legal storm in modern hip-hop. The Diddy storm. The federal storm. The storm nobody wants their child anywhere near, even by accident. And once those two recognitions collided in the same 30-second clip, the internet did not pause. It did not wait. It did not ask for context. It exploded. Within minutes, screenshots were flooding every platform. Within an hour, reaction videos were stacking up by the hundreds. Within a single afternoon, the conversation had already shifted from the music itself to a much heavier question. What is a 12-year-old child doing inside a song that touches a federal indictment of that magnitude? And that question, that single question, is the spark that lit the fuse on everything that followed. Now here is where it gets layered. Because according to multiple reports circulating online, sources close to Kim Kardashian claim that she was not given the full picture before that audio went public. The framing she received, allegedly, was soft. It was described as a creative father-daughter moment. A small contribution. A controlled, family-friendly verse meant to live inside something contained and harmless. That is the version she was reportedly told. But the version that hit the internet was not that. The version that hit the internet carried weight. It carried implication. It carried associations that a parent with even a basic instinct for protection would never knowingly attach to their 12-year-old daughter. And the gap between what she allegedly understood and what actually dropped is reportedly the gap that turned a quiet disagreement into a full-blown legal emergency. Now pause for a second, because this is the detail that most coverage online keeps skipping over. The shock was not only the song. The shock was the betrayal of context. The shock was the feeling, allegedly experienced inside Kim's circle, that a creative pitch had been used as a doorway to something completely different. And once that feeling sets in between two co-parents who already operate on a thin, fragile paper layer of trust, there is no calm conversation that can pull it back. The damage is structural. The damage is nuclear. The damage is the kind that lawyers, not therapists, get called in to handle. And lawyers, according to insiders, were called in fast. Now stack on top of that the speed at which the song spread, because that detail matters more than people realize. We are not talking about a slow leak. We are not talking about a small corner of the internet picking it up. We are talking about a clip that within hours had crossed every platform, every demographic, every age group, every continent. By the time most parents in that situation could even sit down and read what had happened, the audio had already been ripped, mirrored, downloaded, reposted, remixed, and dissected by a million different accounts. There was no putting it back in the bottle. There was no quiet retraction. There was no clean walk back. The track was out, and the child's voice was attached to it. And that combination, once it lives online, lives forever. That permanence is the part that reportedly made Kim's circle treat this not as an argument, but as a fire that needed to be contained before it touched anything else. And while all of this was unfolding, another quieter conversation was reportedly happening in the background. Industry insiders began asking how the track had even reached the point of release. Who approved the final mix? Who signed off on the rollout? Who saw the references in the lyrics and decided to push forward anyway? None of those questions have public answers, and they may never get them. But the fact that those questions are being asked at all tells you that the people closest to the situation already understood that something inside the chain of decisions had broken. And once a chain of decisions breaks at this altitude of fame, the people standing closest to the break get pulled into the legal review, whether they want to be or not. Then add one more uncomfortable detail to the picture. Because as the track kept spreading, the conversation around North herself began shifting in a direction that nobody who actually cares about her would have ever wanted. Strangers began debating her vocal performance. Strangers began speculating about how much input she had. Strangers began arguing about whether a 12-year-old could even understand the legal implications of what her voice had been attached to. And every minute that debate continued, her name was getting stitched a little tighter to a story that had nothing to do with her ambitions, her interests, or her future. That is the part of viral fame nobody ever signs up for. That is the part that no parent, no matter how famous, can ever fully control. And that is the part that allegedly turned the entire situation, in Kim's reported view, from a creative dispute into a protective emergency. Now let's talk about Kim Kardashian, because her reaction is the second domino in this entire chain. And her reaction is what reportedly turned this from a viral controversy into a custody-level event. According to circulating reports, the moment Kim heard the final version of the track, her response was not slow. It was not measured. It was not the kind of response you give when something feels manageable. It was immediate. It was sharp. And it reportedly carried the energy of a parent who realized, in real time, that a line they thought existed had already been crossed. Sources claim she did not pick up the phone to argue. She did not send a long emotional message. She did what people in her position are trained to do when stakes climb that fast. She picked up the phone and called her legal team. And from that single call, an entire legal sequence allegedly began moving inside hours. Letters were drafted. Mediators were contacted. Custody language was reviewed. And what had been, until that moment, a routine co-parenting arrangement, suddenly became an active legal pressure point. Now I want to slow down here, because this is one of the most misunderstood parts of the whole story. People online keep framing Kim's reaction as overreaction. People keep saying it was just a song. People keep saying she should have let it slide. But that framing misses the entire architecture of how custody works at this level of fame. Because at this level, every public association attached to a child becomes a permanent piece of their digital record. It does not disappear. It does not get edited out. It lives forever, indexed, searchable, and tied to their name for the rest of their life. So when a 12-year-old's voice gets pulled into a track that even brushes against a federal investigation, the implications are not artistic. They are reputational. They are legal. They are protective. And from Kim's reported point of view, every one of those implications had to be neutralized fast. The next layer of this is what reportedly happened during the private discussions that followed. Insiders claim that more than one mediator was brought into the situation, not just one attorney making a phone call. Multiple voices, multiple advisors, multiple parties trying to slow down a fire that was already moving faster than the people trying to contain it. And that detail alone tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the inner circle was treating it. Because casual disagreements do not get multiple mediators. Casual disagreements do not get formal letters within 48 hours. Casual disagreements do not push two of the most famous people on Earth into emergency custody language. Only fractures of a certain depth do that. And from every reported angle, this was that kind of fracture. At the same time, public perception was sliding fast in a very specific direction. Once the snippet was decoded, once the references were laid out, once the connection between the track and a federal storm was being repeated by larger and larger accounts, the conversation around Kim's reaction changed. People who had previously criticized her for being too controlling suddenly went silent. People who had previously sided with Kanye in older disputes started carefully stepping back. because something about the involvement of a 12-year-old child in that specific creative context flipped a switch in even the most hardened comment sections. It crossed a line that even chronic Kanye defenders struggled to defend. And that public shift, even more than the legal letters, is reportedly part of what gave Kim's side the room to push harder, faster, and more publicly than she normally would. Now let's talk about what those legal letters reportedly contained, because this is where speculation has gone in some pretty extreme directions, and we need to be careful with it. Multiple online accounts have suggested that the language used in those communications went beyond standard co-parenting requests. Some have suggested that words like restriction, supervision, and reassessment were on the table. Others have hinted at the idea of revising the entire decision-making structure around the children's public exposure. None of this has been independently confirmed, and we cannot present any of it as fact. What we can say, with reasonable confidence based on the volume and consistency of the reports, is that Kim's team allegedly moved with the kind of urgency that signals a long-term legal strategy, not a short-term reaction. And long-term legal strategies in custody situations rarely end at the same place where they begin. They evolve. They expand. They lay down markers that can be cited later. And every marker that gets laid down at this stage allegedly becomes a building block for whatever the next phase looks like. There is also a quieter human side to this part of the story that deserves a moment of recognition. Behind every legal letter, behind every mediator, behind every formal communication, there is a parent absorbing a level of stress that most people will never experience. Kim Kardashian did not choose to have this dispute play out in front of a global audience. She did not choose to have her 12-year-old daughter's name typed into millions of search bars in a single afternoon. She did not choose for an internal family disagreement to become a worldwide trending topic before she could finish a single phone call. That part of the story rarely gets covered because outrage is easier to package than empathy. But empathy belongs in the timeline too, even when the people involved are powerful enough that you assume they are immune to it. They are not. Nobody is. And here is one more layer that almost no online breakdown is mentioning. The team around Kim reportedly did not just respond to this single incident. They allegedly began reviewing the broader pattern of public moments involving the children over the past several years. Not as ammunition, not as attack material, but as documentation. Because in any future custody discussion, documented patterns matter more than isolated incidents. And the team that reportedly enters those discussions with the more organized timeline tends to walk out with the stronger position. Whether or not that strategy is being executed exactly as described, the public behavior of both camps suggests that one side is operating on long-range strategy, while the other is operating on short-range emotion. And those two operating modes do not produce equal outcomes when they meet inside a courtroom. Now flip the camera. Because the second this story started moving in Kim's favor, Kanye West did what Kanye West has done in every major conflict of the last few years. He did not stay quiet. He did not wait for a press release. He did not let lawyers speak for him. He went straight to the audience. Live, unfiltered, unedited, without a buffer. And the moment he opened his mouth, the entire narrative started bending again. According to widely circulated clips, Kanye reportedly framed the situation in a completely different light. From his perspective, allegedly, this was never about exposing a child to anything dangerous. From his perspective, allegedly, this was about a father trying to include his daughter in his creative life and being punished for it. From his perspective, allegedly, the bigger problem was not the song at all. The bigger problem was a custody dynamic in which he felt his voice had been slowly, quietly, systematically reduced over time. And whether the audience agreed with him or not, that framing landed. That framing went viral. That framing pulled millions of viewers into his version of events within hours. Now this is where the script gets emotionally complicated, because Kanye on a live stream is not a calm, prepared figure. Kanye on a live stream is raw, layered, sometimes contradictory, sometimes painful to watch. In the segments that spread the fastest, viewers reported that he appeared with his face fully covered, his tone unstable, his energy switching between exhaustion, anger, and something close to grief. And that visual alone, before he even said a single legally significant sentence, became its own form of evidence in the court of public opinion. Because audiences do not just hear celebrities anymore. They read them. They read posture. They read silence between words. They read the eyes when the eyes are visible, and they read the absence of eyes when the eyes are hidden. And what audiences reportedly read in those streams was not a performer. It was a man under pressure, allegedly convinced that a system he could not out-argue was closing in around him. The most viral moments, predictably, were the most direct ones. He reportedly pushed the question of how a custody arrangement can be called shared when one parent feels excluded from major decisions. He reportedly questioned the structure of approvals around his children's public presence. He reportedly suggested, more than once, that he was being cut out of conversations that should require his signature, his input, his presence. None of those statements have been independently confirmed in any legal filing the public has access to, and listeners should keep that in mind. But the volume of those statements, the consistency of those statements, and the emotional weight of those statements is what kept the story burning long after the original snippet had stopped trending. And then the second wave hit. Because once Kanye started speaking publicly, old clips, old quotes, old interviews, and old grievances started resurfacing with new context. Suddenly, every previous tension between him and Kim was being recut, reposted, and reanalyzed through the lens of this new moment. Comment sections that had moved on months ago lit back up. Reaction channels that had buried older feuds dug them right back up. And inside that resurfacing wave, North's name kept appearing. Over and over. In old clips. In old performances. In old social media moments. Each one harmless on its own. Each one suddenly heavier when stacked beside the new allegations. And the heaviness of that stack is what experts watching the situation began calling, off the record, a pattern problem. Not a single incident problem. Not a one-off problem. A pattern problem. And pattern problems, in custody law, hit different than single incidents do. Now here is the layer that almost nobody is talking about. Kanye's defenders have built their entire argument around one core idea. That a father has a right to be fully included in his children's lives, including the creative parts, including the public parts, including the parts that other parents would consider risky. And on a philosophical level, there is a real argument inside that position. Because fatherhood absolutely matters. Equal participation in raising children absolutely matters. Being shut out of decisions absolutely matters. None of that is wrong on its own. The problem, according to almost every expert weighing in publicly, is that the right to be included does not override the responsibility to protect. And when those two principles collide, the responsibility to protect wins. Every single time. In every credible custody framework on the planet. So when Kanye's defenders argue inclusion, they are arguing a real principle. But when Kim's defenders argue protection, they are arguing the principle that legally outranks it. And that is the architecture of the dispute, stripped down to its bones. Inclusion versus protection. Voice versus shield. Access versus boundary. And every wave of new reporting allegedly tilts the scale a little further in one direction. The harder Kanye pushes for inclusion in the public square, the harder the system reportedly leans into protection on the other side. That is not a trap. That is gravity. And gravity at this level of celebrity does not negotiate. There is also a strategic mistake hiding inside the live stream pattern that almost nobody points out. Every single time a public figure responds to a custody situation with raw emotional broadcasts instead of measured legal communication, they hand documentation to the other side without realizing it. Every angry stream becomes a clip. Every clip becomes a transcript. Every transcript becomes a potential exhibit. And exhibits in family court do not need to prove guilt. They only need to suggest instability. So when Kanye chose, allegedly, to communicate his frustration through unfiltered live broadcasts, he may have believed he was reaching the public. But the part the public rarely sees is that the same broadcasts were reportedly being saved, timestamped, and filed by the legal teams on the other side, ready to be referenced if and when the situation moves into a courtroom. That is not a conspiracy. That is just procedure. And procedure does not care how famous you are. Now this is the part where the story stops feeling like a music dispute and starts feeling like something much more serious. Because somewhere in the middle of all that noise, while the lawyers were still moving, while the live streams were still rolling, while the comment sections were still fighting, a new layer entered the conversation. A scheduled visit. And around that scheduled visit, online reports began suggesting that individuals tied to highly controversial legal histories were expected to be present. I want to be extremely careful here, because nothing on this point has been formally confirmed in any court document the public can read. Nothing on this point has been independently verified by any major outlet at the level required to treat it as fact. So treat the next part as widely circulated allegation, not as proven reality. But treat it seriously, because allegation is enough to shift a custody dynamic when the people involved are this famous. According to those circulating reports, the moment Kim allegedly became aware of who might be present during that scheduled interaction, her response shifted from cautious to immediate. She did not, according to insiders, ask for clarification. She did not, according to insiders, request a follow-up meeting. She moved, quickly, decisively, reportedly halting the visit before it could unfold. And in the world of high-stakes co-parenting, a halted visit is not a small action. A halted visit is a marker. A halted visit becomes part of the legal record. A halted visit can be cited in future filings as a moment when one parent had to make a unilateral safety call. And that is reportedly exactly the kind of marker that Kim's team was prepared to lay down if necessary. From Kanye's reported perspective, however, this halt was not safety. From his reported perspective, this halt was a wall. Another wall. Another barrier. Another example of a structure that he allegedly felt was being built around him to slowly remove him from the everyday rhythm of his children's lives. And that perception, justified or not, is what fed the next round of public statements. Because Kanye did not respond to the halted visit with silence. He responded with volume, with more streams, with more posts, with more emotional fragments dropped into the public square in the hours and days that followed. And every fragment carried the same theme. Access, authority, equal say, the right to be present, the right to be informed, the right not to be reduced to a name on a custody schedule. Now, whether you side with him on that or not, you have to acknowledge something. The story had now expanded far beyond a song. It had expanded beyond a snippet. It had expanded beyond a viral clip. It had become a full-scale, fully public, fully televised conversation about what modern custody actually looks like when one parent runs on structure and the other parent runs on impulse. And those two operating systems, structure and impulse, do not blend easily. They collide. They create friction. They produce exactly the kind of cycle that this entire situation has been stuck inside for years. A creative decision happens. A public reaction happens. A legal response follows. An emotional outburst answers it. A temporary calm appears. And then another creative decision restarts the entire loop. Each rotation of that loop tightens the situation. Each rotation raises the stakes. Each rotation pulls the children deeper into a story that was never theirs to begin with. And experts watching the situation kept emphasizing the same point. That kind of loop, repeated long enough, leaves marks. Not legal marks. Not headline marks. Emotional marks. The kind of marks that do not show up in court documents, but do show up in adolescence, in adulthood, in identity, in trust. And for a 12-year-old already being pulled into adult conversations far above her age, those marks are exactly what every cautious voice in the room is reportedly trying to prevent. Now stack onto that the wider context of what was happening in the entertainment industry at the same time. Because this story did not unfold in a vacuum. It unfolded during one of the loudest, ugliest legal cycles modern hip-hop has ever lived through. Federal cases. Sealed indictments. Civil suits stacking on top of each other. Names that used to fill stadiums suddenly filling court dockets. Every week brought a new headline. Every headline brought a new association. And every association reportedly tightened the standard for what kind of creative environment any child should be near. So when this particular track surfaced inside that climate, it did not just look risky. It looked, to a lot of observers, structurally unwise. Tone deaf to the moment. Disconnected from the room. And for Kim's side, that disconnect was reportedly more than enough justification to move the way they moved. Because in their view, allegedly, the exact moment that hip-hop's biggest legal storm was peaking was the exact moment a 12-year-old should have been pulled further away from the genre's heaviest associations, not closer to them. And anything that contradicted that instinct was a problem. A problem worth letters. A problem worth mediators. A problem worth emergency calls. A problem worth, if it came to that, restructuring the entire custody balance from the ground up. That last sentence is the one nobody wants to say out loud. But every reported step of this process has, allegedly, been pointing in that direction. There is also a deeper question hiding inside the halted visit story that deserves attention. Because halting a visit is not just a defensive move. It is also a statement. It tells the other parent, in the clearest possible language, that the trust which used to exist between the two camps is no longer the operating standard. From this point forward, allegedly, every interaction is being filtered through a layer of caution that did not exist before. Every visit gets reviewed. Every guest list gets vetted. Every plan gets cross-checked. And once that layer is installed, it almost never gets removed. It only gets reinforced. That is what makes the halted visit feel so heavy in retrospect. It was not just one decision. It was the activation of an entirely new operating standard. And operating standards, once activated, become the new baseline. The new normal. The new floor. And both parents now have to live inside a floor that one of them did not choose. Let's zoom out for a moment, because if you only look at this story through the lens of one song, one stream, one halted visit, you will miss what this actually is. This is not a single incident. This is the surface of a much longer current that has been pulling the West and Kardashian families further apart for a long time. And every wave we are seeing right now is just the latest spike on a graph that has been climbing for years. Think about how the tension has stacked. There was the era of public album rollouts that included family imagery. There was the era of social media outbursts about parenting decisions. There was the era of disputes over schools, faith, and creative direction. There was the era of viral livestream apologies followed by viral livestream relapses. Each era ended with a temporary truce. Each truce ended with a new flashpoint. And every flashpoint pushed the legal language between the two camps a little tighter, a little more formal, a little less forgiving. So when this latest situation hit, it did not land on neutral ground. It landed on ground that was already cracked. It landed on ground that had already absorbed years of impact. And ground in that condition does not absorb new pressure quietly. It splits. That is what we are watching split right now in real time. Now layer in the second pressure source, the internet itself. Because in a previous era, a co-parenting dispute of this scale would have unfolded behind closed doors, in private mediations, with sealed documents and gag orders that nobody could reach. That world does not exist anymore. In this world, every piece of the dispute leaks. Every emotional reaction becomes content. Every legal filing becomes a thumbnail. Every halted visit becomes a debate topic. And every minor's name, no matter how carefully their parents try to protect it, becomes a search term. That is the real horror inside this story. Not the song, not the stream, not even the legal letters. The horror is that a child cannot grow up away from the conversation, because the conversation is everywhere her name exists. And her name exists everywhere. Now layer in the third pressure source. The audience. Us. The viewers. The commenters. The reaction channels. The tweet threads. Because no matter how much we tell ourselves that we are just observing, every one of these stories is fueled by the demand for more of them. Every click is a vote for the next chapter. Every share is a request for an update. Every reaction video is an invitation for the involved parties to keep performing, keep responding, keep escalating. And celebrities at this altitude feel that demand. They calibrate to it. They respond to it. Sometimes they fight it, and sometimes they feed it. And in this particular case, the reported pattern suggests that one parent is allegedly trying to lower the temperature, while the other is allegedly using the temperature as a stage. Whether that framing is fair is for the audience to decide. But the framing itself is what is shaping the entire public narrative right now, and narratives like that do not soften. They sharpen. They sharpen until something gives. So the question becomes, what gives? Does the custody arrangement get formally rewritten? Does one parent secure tighter primary control? Does the other parent step back from the public square long enough to rebuild trust? Does a court eventually step in and impose structure that neither side chose? Or does the cycle simply continue, rotation after rotation, until one of the children involved becomes old enough to speak for themselves and break the loop from the inside? Nobody knows the answer to that yet. Nobody can know. But every credible voice watching the situation seems to agree on one quiet, uncomfortable truth. The current trajectory is not sustainable. Something will shift. The only open question is whether that shift will be guided, controlled, and protective, or whether it will be sudden, public, and painful. Now I want to spend a moment on the part of this story that almost never gets coverage, because it might be the most important part of all. The siblings. North is the oldest, but she is not alone in this house. There are other children, younger ones, children who are watching, children who are listening, children who do not yet have the vocabulary to describe what it feels like when the adults around you are constantly being pulled into a narrative that includes them. And every expert who has spoken on the record about high-conflict co-parenting has emphasized the same point. The visible child is rarely the only one carrying the weight. The siblings carry it too. They carry it in different ways. They carry it in quieter ways. But they carry it. And in this case, allegedly, the entire household is reportedly absorbing the pressure of a story that the public assumes is only happening to one daughter. It is not. It is happening to all of them. Every one of them. Every single day this stays in the news cycle. That is a part of the cost that almost nobody calculates when they hit share on the latest update. And that is also the part of the story that, allegedly, both parents reportedly understand more than they let on, even when they disagree on almost everything else. Because under all the legal pressure, under all the public statements, under all the live streams and letters and leaks, two parents are still trying to raise 4 children inside the loudest spotlight in the world. And there is no instruction manual for that. There is no precedent. There is no easy answer. There is only the next decision, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. There is one more thread inside this story that deserves a final word before we wrap it up. The thread of legacy. Because everything we are watching right now is going to outlive the news cycle. Long after the next viral track drops. Long after the next live stream goes silent. Long after the next legal filing gets quietly resolved. The version of this story that ends up baked into the digital record is the version the next generation will read when they search these names. And in 20 years, when Northwest is an adult, she will be able to pull up everything that was said about her during this exact week. Every comment, every video, every theory, every argument, every halted visit, every legal whisper. That is the inheritance modern fame leaves behind. Not money, not property, not fashion empires. A search history. A permanent, public, unchangeable search history that follows the children of famous people from cradle to grave. And the people who care about them most, regardless of which side of this dispute they sit on, are reportedly all asking the same quiet question behind closed doors. What is being added to that search history right now? And is any of it worth the cost? Those questions do not have clean answers, but they are the questions that should anchor every decision both camps make from this point forward. Because the children involved did not choose any of this. And someday, allegedly, they will read every single line of it. So let's bring it all the way back to where we started. A song, a snippet, a 12-year-old's voice, a father convinced he is being pushed out, a mother convinced she is being forced to defend a line she should not have to defend in public, a federal storm on the edge of the frame, a halted visit, a stack of legal letters, a live stream that would not stop, a timeline of old clips suddenly recolored by a new context. And underneath all of that, a child whose only job in this story should have been to be a child. None of this has fully resolved. None of this has fully closed. None of this has been filed, sealed, signed, and put away. Most of what is moving right now is still moving inside private offices, private group chats, and private legal channels that the public will only hear about months after the fact. So when you read the next headline that drops on this story, remember this video. Remember the layers. Remember the timeline. Remember that what you are seeing in the headline is rarely what is actually happening underneath it. And remember that the loudest version of any story is almost never the most accurate one. Now I want to hear from you, because this is one of those situations where there is no clean side to stand on. Some of you are going to look at everything we just covered and feel that Kanye West is being squeezed out of his own children's lives by a system stacked against fathers. Some of you are going to look at the same evidence and feel that Kim Kardashian is doing exactly what any parent paying attention would do in a moment this volatile. Some of you are going to feel both at the same time. And honestly, that might be the most accurate response of all. Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you stand. Tell me what you think the next move should be. Tell me what you think a court should do if this lands in front of one. Because the comment section under videos like this is where the real conversation lives, and I read more of them than people realize. If this is your first time on the channel, this is what we do. We do not chase headlines. We do not repeat surface-level takes. We pull the story apart piece by piece, and we put it back together in a way that actually makes sense. So if that is the kind of breakdown you have been looking for, hit subscribe right now. Turn the notification bell on, because the next phase of this story is already forming, and when it drops, you're going to want to be early, not late. Smash that like button if this video gave you even one piece of context you did not have before, because every like genuinely pushes this kind of long-form breakdown to more people who are trying to understand what is really going on instead of just reacting to clips. Share this with the one friend in your group chat who has been arguing about Kanye and Kim for the last 2 weeks straight, because they need this timeline more than anybody. And stay close, because the next update is not going to wait for any of us. This story is still moving, still breathing, still rewriting itself in real time. And when the next chapter hits, and trust me, it is coming, we're going to be right back here, breaking it down the same way, layer by layer, line by line, with no shortcuts. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of the people around you, and remember, behind every viral headline is a real human story. And in this one, the most important human in the entire narrative is the one with the smallest voice. And one final thought before you go. The next 48 hours of this story are reportedly the most critical window of the entire dispute, because every legal team involved is allegedly racing to lock in their positioning before the public narrative settles into a fixed version of events. So whatever drops next, watch it twice. Read it slowly. Question every angle. The truth is in the layers. Stay tuned.